In this video, we're going to take a look at Tacomo's new irons for 2026. Huge advantages, but also a big disadvantage as well. We're going to talk about that in this video. 3 different models to look at. We're going to hit them all and give you my honest feedback of the new irons from Tacomo. So 3 different iron models aimed at 3 different levels of golfers. So we've got the 101 Mark II. That's your more game improvement iron, a little bit of a bigger profile, obviously looking at ultimate forgiveness as well as ball speed and distance. Moving then into the 201 Mark II, which becomes more in that player's distance category. Hugely popular area, very much in that P790 from TaylorMade sort of arena, as well as many other very popular irons from other brands. And then going into more of a player's precision iron, which is the 201T Mark II. So 3 very similar looking irons at first glance, but obviously packed with a little bit of differences of technology in the heads, a little bit of sizing, as well as maybe some material inside and loft. We're going to look at it in this video. So let's take a look straight away in the 101. We're going to start off with this iron. So as I mentioned, this is the game improvement iron. We've got a loft here in a 7 iron at 29 degrees, as we're going to expect with a lot of the other brands as well. It's in that stronger area. So really oozing distance here now and ball speed for anybody who's really striving to get some more distance with their irons. First glance of this, it's very plain looking in a way, just a small Tacomo logo. 101 Mark II, Tacomo written on the heel. It's got like a satin sort of finish to it with a little bit more of even more of a sort of matte satin sort of finish just in the back. Little cavity. When I say cavity, it's not a cavity. It's just cleaned off, but it's just got that little etching in there. Plain length, blade length, should I say, is pretty generous. So we pop that in that plain position. We're seeing a large-ish footprint behind the golf ball. It's not overly massive, a little bit of offset as you're going to expect to see, and top line that I would say is quite medium to slightly thick, but nothing chunky by any means. So I think sometimes golfers put these down, these game improvement irons, they sort of need that help, but then they don't like to see that big chunky top line. They've actually chamfered this off very discreetly there, which makes it look thinner than what it actually is. Quite a clever little move there from Tacomo. Quite a large toe section actually, but does fill you with a bit of confidence down by that golf ball. Okay, quite a nice sort of solid sound to that. We've got that hollow construction, so we are going to maybe hear that little bit of a clickier sort of crack to it. It's quite a strong right to left wind here, so what you'll see on TrackMan here is the ball flying a little bit more left with the wind, and then it levels it out because I've got it as normalised, which takes the wind out of the readings of the ball flight. So we've got a 17.4 cast VFT face here in the 5 iron to 8 iron. So basically that VFT is variable face thickness, making that club face a little bit hotter across the entire face, which maybe need that little bit of help in those longer irons. And then as you move into your scoring irons, it comes a 17.4 cast, just a flat face. So we haven't got that VFT technology behind the club face. Oh, it's a little bit off the bottom of the club straight away, testing a bit of forgiveness. That low on the face strike. Ball speed, not bad there actually, 124.5. Spins all right, 181 on a little bit of a lower hit. So Tacomo as a brand, we're seeing it really catapult into the limelight, especially on social media, don't we? Now, it's a direct-to-consumer brand, as we know, so the price point of these is quite low in really when what you think about other brands out there. But obviously that's because they're cutting that middleman out, they're direct to that consumer, aren't they? So price-wise, very, very attractive. But there is a little bit of a negative to that, is you can't really go in and start hitting it, testing different shafts, testing different lie angles on a TrackMan, to really get it precisely dialed in. You've got to go on their website and put your spec in, if you know it. That's the big thing there. So it is a little bit of a riskier strategy there in terms of spending that money, but if you sort of know your specs, you're going to get a little bit of bargain. Or if you don't mind having a punt at £500–600 for a set, knowing that they might not work, you can move them on. Obviously that's a little bit more of your decision. So maybe a little bit of a negative on that front, but it's the pros and cons really, that direct consumer model. That's a nice strike. That's a good ball flight. Feels nice. It sounds really good actually. It sounds solid. It's not loud, abrasive or anything like that. That's a little bit of a left to righter there. Quite neutral actually. 124 ball again. And not a bad spin number, I don't think, really there. If I can get it over that 5,000 on a 29-degree loft 7-iron, that's not too bad, really, because I've got some nice land angle there at 47 degrees. That's going to help with some stopping power and a nice sort of carry distance at 180. So just looking on the website at the custom options, and you can have these as stock options standard, or if you do want them customized, as in extra length or less length, changing of the line angle, there is going to be some little bit extra charges to that to get them absolutely customized. Shaft wise, they've got the KBS tall light, so they're hitting that light bracket there, again in a regular and stiff, and then moving up into the KBS Tour, which is around that sort of 120 to 130 mark. Again, just different flex options in there, as well as a graphite. If you want the length changing, you're looking at an extra £16. If you want in lies changing, that's another extra £16. It's not a lot of money, to be honest, to get that little bit of customization in there, and it still works out obviously a lot cheaper than a lot of your major big brands. But again, it goes back to the point, what is your spec? How do you know your spec? You can't hit them, you can't look at them, you can't feel them. Match it up into your delivery. And that's probably the only real downside to these types of irons, but that does feel very nice off the club face. It's a nice high ball flight. Definitely feel like you can get that sort of land angle happening there. We have 48.5, good. 5,300 spin, launch 17, good ball speed. They are nice. I really like them. So I've got this in the KBS 130X. It is only a standard length and it is only a standard light, which isn't ideal for me if I'm being honest. But they couldn't at the time send them built to my spec, unfortunately, because this was new before they were actually sort of launched. So availability-wise, in the 101 Mark II, we've got a 5-iron up to pitching wedge as well as a gap wedge. There's no long irons in there, as in a 3 and 4-iron. Probably the type of golf that go into this might be moving then into a hybrid in those longer irons. Right, so now switching over into the 201 Mark II. So this is now into that player's distance category. As I mentioned before, really popular area. We start to see a little bit more of a neater look, maybe a little bit more of a thinner top line, becomes a little bit more squat, a little bit more of that player's look to it. But again, still hollow construction, still offering forgiveness with a little bit of distance and ball speed as well. Lofts are changing as you expect. So this 7-iron's coming in at 31 degrees of loft. So the availability in this particular model is a 4-iron through to pitching wedge. There's no gap wedge in this 201. So into that playing position there. Now what we're sort of seeing compared to the 101 is it's just a little bit shorter in that blade length. Top line, to be honest, looks quite similar. Let me just put these two side by side. Yeah, it's just a little bit of a neater package there. Offset-wise, a little bit less offset, but there still is some offset there. And yeah, maybe the top edge just a little bit thinner, but just a touch more compact in its head size. Looks really nice, actually. Again, sits great. We've got that white bottom groove, so that helps a little bit with alignment. So what we should sort of see with this sort of iron now with that loft is hopefully a little bit more spin, a bit more control, maybe not as much distance as what we've just seen with the 201. See that one there, I left that face a little bit open, so that's just popped up. The spin's increased quite a bit there, hasn't it? Maybe that'll a little bit, maybe just leaving that face a little bit open. Land angle definitely a little bit more steeper. That was a better strike there, to be honest, from me. That'll be probably a lower spin than what we've just saw on that first one. Maybe a little bit more distance as well. Yeah, so 5,400, good peak height there again. So we see a very similar finish to what we've seen in the 101. We've got that sort of little bit of that satin sort of finish to it. We can see that little screw in the end there, probably a little bit of a tungsten screw there, just to help with that CG placement in the head itself. We're still on 17.4 cast head, VFT in the 4 to 7 iron, then the flat face from the 8 into the scoring iron, so still some help on that slight miss hits, maybe what you might just see a little bit more in those longer irons. Again, really good sort of solid sound to it. I must admit, it feels a bit softer than the 17.4 cast, to be honest. It feels quite close to a forged. In terms of sound, it's a little bit more muted, so maybe some dampening happening inside the head here. And maybe we sort of see, right, which type of golf or level golf would be moving into this. I think it's somebody who wants to probably progress out of that game improvement iron. Maybe the golf game has, progressed a little bit more, skill levels improved, maybe ball striking's a little bit better, then this will be a great option to transition out that game improvement iron to give you something that's a little bit more spin, a bit more control into shots that you might just demand a little bit more as you're getting better at the game. So in terms of a handicap, really, I think anything from sort of low handicap golf up to probably up to about a 20 handicap, to be honest, would fit into this iron, subject to the ball striking. Yeah, it's slightly different on the flight there. It doesn't look as low spin there. Definitely a bit more spin there. That must have 6,000. Yeah, about just short of that 6,000 mark. Okay, so we're just seeing a little bit of a higher spin number. We'll hit one more and then we'll move into the 201T. Ooh, right, that's right off the bottom of the golf club. The flight's absolutely identical there. That was a bit more lower than maybe what TrackMan's showing it there, to be honest. It felt a bit bottom groovy. Spin's gone up a little bit. Distance at 166. So nice progression on from the 101 is that 201. Let's move into the tee. So the 201T, now this looks a little bit cleaner on the back. We've got that satin finish, but we haven't got that dull matte finish in there. Just a very clean look. A bit more of a bladey look to this, but it is still hollow construction. We still see that tungsten in the toe in those longer irons for help a little bit with that forgiveness level. So as I say, it's hollow, so this isn't a pure player's iron. It's a real nice crossover from that player's distance iron to then more of that precision of a player's iron. It sits right in the middle there. So again, it's a nice step on from that player's distance of just the standard 201. So what do we see differently now in this iron? Again, we're just going to go a little bit more compact. Sole just gets a tiny little bit thinner into that playing position. Again, the holes. Length blade just gets a little bit more compact, touch less offset, and again a nice sort of mediumish top line. It's a very neat looking golf club behind the golf ball. Not too neat that it doesn't fill you with any confidence, but just more of a neater package. So if that's something that you prefer, then you're going to really like the look of this. Oh, that felt solid. Again. Now, lofts are changed yet again, 7-iron, and it's coming in at 33 degrees. So again, it's edging more towards consistency, higher spin, a bit more control, that maybe the player who would work into this would really need to sort of try and have in their game to hit all types of flag positions, conditions, and green sort of firmness in a way, really get a ball control as it comes into land. So typically as we go into a little bit more loft, we might not get as much ball speed. You see the ball speed on that one's 121, just starts to drop a little bit. Okay, there's a toe strike. That wasn't brilliant from me. And the ball speed hasn't dropped huge amount there, 120. That's not bad at all, and the spin hasn't dropped massively with a toe strike either, so that's done quite nicely from that type of strike. So there's still some decent forgiveness in this iron. So there is a tungsten bar inside the head in that 427 iron, which again is going to help with that little bit more of deeper CG to get that ball sort of flighted, a little bit more precision on the CG location in those longer irons. Then as you get into the scoring irons, that tungsten disappears from the iron itself. Now, availability is a 4-iron through to pitching wedge, and the pitching wedge is 47 degrees of loft. Yeah, you don't often see a wedge at 47 degrees nowadays. So nice and refreshing, and that would blend very nicely into some wedges, gap wedge, and then sand iron, potentially then into a lob wedge, depending on your wedge makeup. And that wind's pretty strong out there. That'll level itself up on TrackMan. Everything looks to be moving more left than probably what I would do if there was no wind. Yeah, quite a neutral shot. Bit heel. Again, spin retention, very nice. And good ball speed from that slight heely one. Now, you have got options with these, because these are a little bit more expensive. These are 629, I think it is, for to wedge. But there is an option just to go head only. So you've got a stock standard option, which will just come standard lie, standard length, standard grip. And then you've got the custom option, which you pay that little bit extra for the lie change, the length change, and a certain grip that you might want on there might be a little bit of an upcharge as well. And then you've got this head only option, which is obviously a lot cheaper because you're not getting the shaft and the grip, obviously. So the head only option comes down to £439. Obviously then you've got the option then, if you're a little bit of a tinker and you like building with golf clubs, you can put whatever shaft you want to go into that head and obviously fit it whichever grip you want as well. Okay, let's go and check a couple of numbers quickly between those three models and the Takomo irons. So as we can see there, with the 101 being the quickest ball speed, the lowest spin, and obviously the furthest hitting, as we expect to see that with that 29 degree of loft on that 7 iron. Then as we go into the 201, we can see the speed just come back a little bit, launch just goes up a tiny bit, spin goes up a little bit, back on distance, but adding that little bit of spin and control and a little bit more of that land angle. And we also see that in the 201T, where again, the speed just comes back again. We've got extra bit of loft again, so that is going to be less ball speed, and then hopefully a little bit more spin. Now, I didn't actually get as much spin there than the 201, but we understand that strike change on the face will just obviously change spin a little bit. And to be honest, I didn't strike the T maybe as good as the 201 standard. So they'll probably be very, very similar, I would say. Maybe a little bit more spin on average if we retest it again with the T potentially. But give you that more control without loads and loads of distance. But having said that, it was still pretty good on those miss hits. Okay, there you go. There's the Takomo for the 2026 season of 3 hollow construction irons. I think they're really nice. The feeler for the face is good. The look's pretty good in terms of look. It's nothing too snazzy there. Again, maybe just that downside is the ability to get fitted for these and trial them before you buy. That's always the one thing I would be very nervous of purchasing myself, if I'm being brutally honest, because I can't try them. But if you're happy to take that plunge, then the price point is obviously very attractive with regards to that. Post comments down below. Let me know your thoughts on the Takomo irons, and hopefully it will catch up with you all very soon.